Hello, and welcome to the FarmHouse. I'm Candace Wierzbowski.
And I'm Stephanie Spiker.
And recently I spoke with Aubrey Fornwalt, the founder and owner of Circle Bioconversion. But before I get into what exactly Aubrey does, let me paint a picture for you, Steph. Imagine a small enclosed space. There are trays and cubbies lining the walls, and within those trays are piles of food waste. So this is like rotted fruit, unfinished sandwiches, days-old fries, and it's all been ground up into mush. Does this sound appealing to you?
Not really.
Okay, well, stick with me because feeding on this food is fly larvae. Lots and lots of fly larvae, which of course then go on to become flies. Lots and lots of flies. How would you feel about working in this environment?
I don't think I could handle that. I'm not a huge bug person. So yeah, it does not seem like my ideal day.
Well, what I just described is the kind of environment that Aubrey works in every day at Full Circle. She's using black soldier fly larvae to convert food waste from around her community into soil amendments that can then be used to grow more food. She also sells those larvae as feed to local poultry operations, so there's no waste there either. Full Circle is the first operation of its kind in Pennsylvania, and Aubrey started it after working as a graphic designer, but she unfortunately found that work unfulfilling, and she wanted to find a way to give back. And so she landed on this form of composting. And I'm going to let her tell that story herself, so let's invite her in and hear about why she got into bioconversion and how she deals with all those flies. Aubrey, thank you for joining us in the farmhouse today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's dive right in. What is bioconversion and how is it managed at Full Circle Bioconversion?
Bioconversion is kind of a larger term, a broader term for the decomposition and basically the transformation from one material into another through either organisms or insects, something like that. So it's a transformation process. So that would include composting, that would include methane digestion, and that also includes the process that I utilize to break down recycled food that I collect. And I just use insect larvae to convert all of that into either protein for chickens and birds or soil amendments. Bioconversion is a fancy big word to include a bunch of other little processes, natural processes.
Okay. And so how specifically do you guys do that at Full Circle?
So I'm both composter, I'm hauler, I am also insect farmer. So I do all of the things. So I go around I have some restaurants I work with, and I also have a list of households I go around. Everyone gives me their food scraps in a 5-gallon bucket. So I collect their buckets, they get a clean one. I take all their food, and it is strictly food. I don't deal with any yard waste, but I take their food and it all comes back to the farm. It gets processed, and what that means is it goes through like a big meat grinder and makes the most disgusting sausage in the world. But it's the perfect food consistency for the larva to break down so much faster. So I can manage about 250 to 300 pounds of food a day just with the setup that I have right now, which is by no means an efficient setup, but it's working so far.
Okay, so we actually have a video of your operation. It's on our YouTube channel. It's at lancasterfarming.com if anyone wants to watch it. It's called Keeping Food Waste Out of Landfills with Black Soldier Flies. I highly recommend doing so. But it does beg the question, I guess, how long did it take you to get used to the sensation of the flies around you crawling on you at times, but also I'm thinking the smell must be a little pungent in there. And that must be some sort of like process you have to go through when you first start out in this business to get used to all that.
Yes. And as someone who is very sensitive to smells, I've worked very diligently to get this into at least a not too offensive odorous state. So, and what that means is it's moisture control. It's just understanding how much water goes into the process and making sure everything doesn't turn anaerobic. Anaerobic is my number one enemy, but I feel like at this point I've figured out the processes. So when I say everything goes through the meat grinder, that's step one. That's how I manage any odors. That releases extra water. And then I don't have to worry about sloppy, sludgy larva goo. That's the part that gets a little gross. As far as like the insects crawling on me or flying around me, I've become so desensitized to it. And I have to remind visitors at any point, if you feel overwhelmed, if you can't manage the feeling or the sensation or just like the visuals, I do not judge. You can leave the room at any point. I'm just kind of like happy in my cloud of flies. So I'm just so used to it.
Okay, so some folks might hear about this and think, well, it's food waste, it's going to decompose anyway at some point. Why is bioconversion a better option?
It's faster and you have additional products available. So yes, you could let it just kind of rot away in the landfill and it turns into methane, which eventually could turn into electricity. But if you think of the timeline that takes, if you think of like the hauling, like it takes a big truck hauling how many miles, there's an investment there. And so I think the return on investment with the insects versus that type of mechanical utilization, nature is so much more efficient than we are. And if we take the time to watch how it works and take cues from it and not necessarily try to outsmart it, I think we could do a lot of really cool things. And that would improve a lot of our current systems.
Okay. So what initially got you interested in bioconversion? I feel like this falls into the category of jobs that a lot of kids probably aren't aware of, much less are saying like, that's what I want to do when I grow up. So what sparked your interest?
Well, my superhero backstory is I never had any scientific training in this, but I was always a child of the woods. And I always remember, like, affectionately my childhood growing up, catching crayfish in the creek, climbing trees, just being outside in those elements, being in nature. And I did the corporate thing. I went to school for graphic design. I was in the corporate world, and it was so very unfulfilling. And it was really a not exciting or special moment that I had my little light bulb moment where I just thought, I want to compost. I was just driving in my car when I was living on Long Island. There was really nothing special about it, but for some reason, something triggered. I want to do something more meaningful and sustainable. And composting came to mind initially because that's what comes to everyone's mind initially, I think. And I went back and I did some of the, okay, how do I plan this out? What makes sense here? And the idea of finding a big swath of flat land in the Susquehanna River Valley was going to be extremely challenging. And also, if it was flat land, it would be on a floodplain, which isn't ideal. Also, equipment, I'd have to get big equipment. I'd have to do like an engineered compost pad. And then that's a huge risk. Like, would this even take off? Would this even work? So I went back to some research, and there's a permaculture book that I had purchased that used black soldier fly larvae to address the excess or the waste that they had on their farms. So they used black soldier fly larvae. They'd feed them the food left over from processing, or if they had animals that they butchered, that's where that all went. And then those larvae in turn fed their chickens. They fed the fish in their pond. And I think I just looked up where to buy larvae online, and the first batch came from eBay. So, and that was in 2017, I think. And I just didn't stop. I didn't get grossed out. I thought it was pretty cool. I find them to be, the flies are beautiful, and the larvae are just almost hypnotic, if you can believe that.
I was going to ask, like, why black soldier flies? Like, what about them and their life cycle makes them ideal for this sort of work?
So the adult fly only lives 4 to 7 days, and you could probably extend that a little bit more if you feed them like a sugar water solution. But generally 4 to 7 days, and they don't eat. So they're not considered a vector. They don't bite, they don't sting. And they eventually move from the south up to the north as the summer goes along. So here in this part of Pennsylvania, they natively would appear like end of June. So you don't have to worry about them being a vector and passing along pathogens. You don't have that to worry about. And the larvae themselves eat everything. They eat meat and cheese and bread, like the great American carby diet.
They're not picky.
Not at all. Not at all. And it's a growing interest. People are showing a lot more interest in how to manage their own little larva colony. So I do get the occasional question, like, how do I do this better? How do I do that better? So,
So, you mentioned the flies are not picky, but have you noticed that are there certain foods that they prefer, or do you see a difference in the end product depending on what kind of food you're using, or is it all kind of the same once it goes through the grinder?
they will break down like a vegetal mix, but they're more excited about the fat and the protein and the carbs. So, yes, it will disappear, but definitely the higher fat content, they like that.
Yeah, flies, they're just like us, right?
Exactly.
So where do you see the future of bioconversion going 5, 10, 15 years from now?
Insect agriculture has grown a lot in the past, I want to say 3 years even. And I will do a search online to see what the new research is. And every probably 9 or 12 months, there are new papers that are coming out. And the interest is there. And I think it's because we have such a huge issue with food waste in this country, and managing it with just compost is, like I said, a huge footprint. You also require a massive amount of carbon to offset all the nitrogen of the food waste. So I think the insect bioconversion is a really nice complementary aspect to composting. Obviously, I can't take all the things, and every aspect has its own piece. So using insect bioconversion with a composting operation makes total sense. And I think that's something that is showing more development. People are showing more interest in, okay, how do we diversify this? And like I said, there's the addition of insect protein at the end of this process, and that is highly valuable.
Yeah, and those are the ones that get sold to like chicken farms or poultry operations in general, I'm thinking.
Right, yeah.
So where's the food waste coming from in general? So I think maybe like restaurants I saw on your site, or is it private homes that are sending you this stuff?
I do both. So I have, I think 4 restaurants I work with, and also about 20 or 25 households between that. And at the peak of summer season, it's probably about 1,000 pounds of food that I bring in a week. And that will kind of trickle down to about 700 to 800 a week. And yeah, it's all the things. It's the meat, the cheese, the dairy, breads. And that's a feature of this as well. Typically, a household composter, they've been told for years and years, you can't do the meat, you can't do the dairy. It attracts vermin, they're pathogens. And it is really hard to maintain the hot compost pile to break down those pathogens too. So
Right.
I can do all that. I can take that
Yeah.
and you don't have to worry about it.
Very cool. So on a lighter note, I have to ask, what do the people in your life think about this? Like if you meet someone new and you're talking about what it is you do, I must imagine you get some interesting reactions at times.
Definitely my number one question is, how did you get into this? And yeah, and I do have kind of the nickname the fly lady around town. So and that I wear that as a badge of honor. I am not offended at all to be called the fly lady. I appreciate that. For the most part, people are they're kind of dumbfounded. Like they've never heard of this before, and they're just in disbelief that this is a thing that's happening. And I worked really hard with the DEP several years ago trying to get this permit written. And initially there was a little bit of question about what I was doing because they missed the word soldier in the insect name. They thought it was black flies. Like, well, why is she bringing black flies to the area? And like, No, there's a very important middle word there. So, it was like a 2-year process, I think, to get the permit written, but we got it done. And now we have black soldier fly larva composting, first of its kind in Pennsylvania. So it's just bringing this to light. It's notifying people that, hey, this is a thing. We can do this.
Yeah. And it's yielding some pretty significant results, right? What number are you at in terms of pounds saved from landfills right now?
It's over 200,000 pounds since I started in 2020. And it's
pretty amazing.
It is. For a little like insect operation, for all of that to disappear. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I have one last question for you. What does it mean to be a woman in ag?
Oh, man. This is where I'm going to say I'm just starting to realize that I am in ag, which is wild. And it took a really a new and very close friend. Like, she's a new friend and a close friend, like almost immediately, to make me realize this. So my brain is still kind of trying to understand what that means, because I went down the waste management route with the Department of Environmental Protection. So yes, I started in that realm, but I've always felt this tug that I'm closer to farming. I'm so much closer to farming, and what I'm doing, I should be talking to farmers, not like trash, garbage handlers. So I'm still learning what that means, but I feel so much more comfortable. Like, I feel like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Let's run with this. So I'm still starting to run with it. I'll have to get back to you on that. When we do when we do the follow-up podcast, we'll do that.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Aubrey. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Good luck with the flies. And yeah, it sounds like you're doing some really cool work out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It was definitely very interesting hearing your discussion with Aubrey. I still think I would never be able to do that. I love how she described that she's just happy in my cloud of flies, she said. So, like, you know what? More power to her, because I could never handle flies being all over me. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of work that you either have to love it or you're never going to make it, because it is a lot. There are people in this office that have not watched the video that was made.
I'm going to be honest, I haven't watched it.
Yeah, because it is a lot. It's a lot of fly larvae. It's a lot of flies buzzing around. I get it, and she gets it too, why it's something that could be off-putting to some people.
Yeah, but like, I think what she's doing is awesome. Like, the overall mission, the amount of food waste that she has been able to pretty much save, it's very cool, because, we've talked on this podcast before, in the past, more so through the lens of like CSA shares and stuff like that, about how, for me personally, it's tough sometimes to not have food waste as one person, especially when it comes to, produce or just things that tend to go bad quickly. So I am fascinated by the idea of being able to not feel guilty about like, oh, shoot, like this went bad, like I didn't use it in time. You're able to send it off to someone and it gets broken down and reused. Because I tried composting before and I just didn't really have the time to keep up with it properly, and it didn't really work out for me. So like, I love what she's doing. I could never, ever do it, but I love what she's doing.
Yeah, same. And, you said you're looking at it through a lens of being a single person household, but also there's another lens, and that's of having kids who do not clean their plates consistently. And I feel awful sometimes about the amount of food that's being thrown away at the end of dinner, because it's not food I can save. Like, it's been mashed around and it's just, no one's going to eat that, even if I heat it up again. So it goes in the trash and it's a waste. So it'd be nice to know that, like, oh, well, it's not so wasteful after all. So I would appreciate that. Well, I think that wraps things up for us. Thank you all for listening. If you liked this episode, please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And if you really like this episode, please consider leaving us a review.
If you have any questions or thoughts about the episode or the podcast, you can email us at farmhouse@lancasterfarming.com.
You can also find us on social media at Lancaster Farming on most platforms.
Thanks again for listening and visiting us at the farmhouse. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Candace.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
This episode of The Farmhouse is copyright 2025 by Lancaster Farming newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
It was written by Stephanie Spiker and Candace Worsbowski. It was produced by Eric Herlock. It was mixed by Justin Berger. Music by Tin Bird Shadow.